Welcome to the Soul Touched by Dogs podcast, the show for dog lovers who see dogs not as toys or tools, but wise souls worth our respect and care. I'm Anke Herman, and I'm your host. I talk to awesome humans, people who do great work for dogs and their people. So come and join us for today's conversation. Hello and welcome, Jill. I'm super delighted to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Let's start as we always start. Let's let people know where in this lovely world you're based and what's your business with dogs.
So, I am based in the East San Francisco Bay in California. And I was basically born in love with animals. So,
Oh,
but especially dogs. And I have stewarded 10 dogs of my own. I currently have two. And I've fostered probably just as many. And I use the word steward because, we don't really own them. They are their own personalities, but they give to us so freely. And I have trained two dogs through national championships and in agility. And I love agility. Agility is just the best because the dogs are off leash. They can do whatever they want, and they choose to try to please you. And the thing that most amazes me about dogs is that they choose humans over their own species. And I don't know of any other species that does that. It really is truly a remarkable bond. And so it was sort of course, I was going to put my author life in with dogs. So I have written three books with dogs as a main character. And my goal is to um, educate through entertainment. And so I have these fun books. I have a series of three, and they each feature a dog that sees ghosts. And my journey, so this is the first in the series. This is Between Shadows Eyes. And my journey to how I wanted to educate was kind of convoluted. So I started out um, with the dog being a border collie mix, which was totally um, fashioned over my own dog, who was a foster fail. It was my only foster fail. Um, but during the process of the writing, I started writing a dog rescue column for a local paper. And my publisher had a friend who had this Doberman that had a crazy amount of Instagram followers. At the time, there were like over 200,000, but she rocketed even during the course of the three books that I've written to over 500,000. Plus, she had 1.6 million TikTok followers. So she became this ambassador for the Doberman species. And I started to think, how can I promote dogs in my book? And I thought, well, Dobermans have gotten a really, really bad rap. And so I contacted the owner, Charles Lindsay of Ruby. This is Ruby. Her Instagram handle is Ruby Dooby Doo. And she, my original dog was a he. I had to make it a she, or I didn't have to, but I wanted to be as close to Ruby as possible. And so in the at the end of the first book, just a little bit about the book. It really is entertaining. It's a suspense novel. My protagonist is a teen girl who's been orphaned, and she rescues this Doberman, and it turns out the Doberman can see ghosts. And when she puts her fingers between the dog's eyes like this, she can see the ghost too. And she's trying to keep it quiet that she's living on her own, and the dog's barking, and she's getting notices from complaints from the neighbors. So she takes the dog to an animal behaviorist, and the animal behaviorist has a history with the ghost in her house. And so there's all this tension. We don't really know what people's motivations are. And she's, constantly being reassured by her dog, who is sweet. Dobermans can be very, very, very sweet. And I think people don't realize that. And so in this book, I'm really trying to destigmatize the breed. Um, and so that was kind of my goal for the first book. Then in the second book, this is from Shadow's perspective, and she has been outed. She she now lives part-time next door with her neighbor, which allows her to keep the dog. And she's back in high school. She was trying to, do crazy odd jobs and, slip under the wire. She really didn't want to go into foster care. But she's been outed. She's back into a normal teen life. And she takes her dog to an art class. And the dog is barking. And she, of course, puts her fingers between the eyes and sees there's this little ghost toddler boy in the room. And so she starts being an amateur sleuth. What happened to this little boy? It gets very suspenseful. It happens on Halloween night. And of course, the animal behaviorist has a part in this as well. And in this book, I really wanted to make people think about what their um, living situation is, and is a high energy breed appropriate for them. Putting a Doberman in a crate for 8 hours while you're working is probably not the best life for that dog. But maybe a small dog is more appropriate for that situation. So I really kind of go through, being a responsible steward and finding
I
the
love
right
that
thing
word.
for you, right? And then in the last book, the sad thing, this is, I'm terrible at this. There we go. Um, this book, my protagonist is exploring her roots, and her mother comes and visits as a ghost. So she's really grappling with family, and in the chaos of an earthquake. So she has again interactions with the infamous Dr. Griffin, the behaviorist, and again a lot of suspense, a lot of emotion about family and what family means, and of course, Shadow in every book is sweet, and in particular in this book, she saves the day.
Oh, gotta love a
Um,
book where the dog saves today.
yeah. And then in the end of the book, I really talk about, unfortunately, during the writing of this book, Ruby passed away from DCM, which is a heart condition.
Oh.
I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but a lot of large breeds have this, and Dobermans in particular have this condition, and it's awful. They can literally be out chasing the ball and fall over dead. And Ruby had an early diagnosis, and that enabled Charles, her owner, to manage the disease and really prolong her life. And so, in the back of this book, I talk about DCM and I talk about early warning signs so that people can know what to look for, what to watch for, and get the dog to the vet immediately if they start seeing symptoms.
Mm.
And I can actually tell you some of the symptoms. I wrote them down. So some of the early symptoms are decreased tolerance to exercise, heart murmurs, and irregular heart rhythms. And then as the disease progresses, they might start coughing, they might stop eating as much. Their gums get pale, can get abdominal swelling. It can be difficult for them to rise to their feet. And then in the severe cases, they might start panting. Their tongues can turn blue and they start to drool. At that point, it is imperative to get the dog to a vet. But really, it's a terrible disease. It can happen, in the snap of a finger, and you don't even know the dog's sick. So, you know, people should really keep their eyes open.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. No, I love that, and I love the whole idea of a series. And so, were you like a writer before you started, like, focusing on dogs, or like how did it occur to you to, package those lessons and those goals that you mentioned in, because you could have written like an educational kind of nonfiction book, right? So,
Right.
but you chose to wrap it into fiction, and that's not just a decision. Like there needs to be a skill behind that, right? So I
Right.
can't just go, it's like, oh yeah, let me just write a novel. Like you need to understand structure and character development and have a plot and all these things. So did you know all that beforehand, or which way around did it go?
So I actually have a science background. I have a master's degree in environmental management and a bachelor's in biological science. And my first book, which still is not published, I wanted to write about environmental disasters, and I started out with the idea of writing, a science-based book. And my husband said to me, he said, you're kind of preaching to the choir. Why don't you do this idea of entertaining, but still educating people. And it just like clicked with me. So, of course, I did not know how to write a novel. So I went to classes and I studied and did all that. And uh, and so my first book was based on the introduction of the mosquito in Hawaii in ancient times. And I do plan to go back to it. It's just other things got in the way. Um, and the my first published book was I went to Africa on an African safari, and I learned that 3 rhinos were being killed every day for their horns. And then it was like, I have to do something about this. So I wrote a book. Again, it's a young protagonist who goes on safari. She's dealing with relationship problems with her dad, and then she gets lost in the bush, surrounded by fire and between rhino poachers and 2 endangered rhinos. So I love writing suspense. I love writing about animals, and
Such
I
a cool
also,
combination. I really
yeah.
love this idea, because I think we do learn best through stories, right? And when we can really identify with the character, and but that's I love that. I love that.
Well, if you think about it, traditionally, that's what humans did. They sat around the campfire and they told stories, they told folklore, they told things to, keep the kids in line, the
Yeah.
boogeyman's going to come get you. Um, and so to put it in book form, it just seemed like, my husband had the idea, but I just like ran with it because I thought it was
Mm.
brilliant.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree, totally agree. So what do you know what your like is your typical reader like a teenager like identifying kind of, or is it older people, or do you what do you like do you know? Like
It's mostly older people.
mm,
I think it's a sort of a misnomer that young adult books are for teenagers because a young adult book can deal with very sophisticated issues. Um, and my reader is someone who likes to, re-engage in that time in your life, which is so formative, right? And a lot of adults, I'd say the majority of young adult readers are adults. So yeah, a lot of my, of course, I do have some teen readers, um, but the focus, especially with the safari books, I mean, a lot of people read. I have two in that series. The other one's called, well, the first is Rhino in the Room, and the second is Queen of the Rhino. And people that are going on safari because my other goal with those books was to educate or to basically create the experience of a safari for people who can't go there for
oh,
whatever
okay.
reason,
Yeah.
if it's financial or health reasons or whatever. I really thought it was such a magical experience, and I wanted to share that.
I love
And
that.
by the way, in the second book, Queen of the Rhino, there's a Doberman that has a cameo in there. I have to put those dogs in there.
I mean, fair enough. I think yeah, I think you're totally right. So when you, I mean, always fascinated about the book writing. Like, so when you have an idea for a new project, like, where do you start in your mind? Do you start with like, okay, here's the core message I want to bring across, or do you have first an idea or a spark for a storyline and then pull out the lesson or the moral of the story afterwards?
It really is a process. So usually the idea comes to me first, and usually like the current one of the current projects I'm working on is again a Doberman, is my dog breed, just because I really want to promote the breed. Um, and I have a lot of Doberman followers, people who have Dobermans. Um, but this Doberman is a scent detection dog, and she has learned to identify diseased beehives. And so and I did not know this at the time when I first started writing it. Again, it's a process, but 90% of the US bees come into California in February to help pollinate the almond trees in the Central Valley. And so, what would happen if a lot of those hives started to collapse? And so, I took that idea and I'm running with it. So different main character. This actually is
Yeah.
an adult rather than a young adult. She's in college. And again, suspenseful. You don't quite know what's going on.
So you have that idea and then you develop the characters and the plot and all of that around it.
Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
plot driven for
Yeah.
sure. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, of course, the message, is climate
Hmm.
change, pesticide use, getting into my environmental roots here.
I was just
Uh,
thinking, see, I always find there's a really magic spot when sort of different passions merge, and there's this spot where they overlap, where all the pieces come together, right? And it's all kind of, yeah, I think that's a very powerful place to be and place to create from, because yeah, there's just something about that when it's not just like, oh, it's the dogs or it's the signs or it's the, like it's when there's a place. And I feel that you found that medium where you have that artistic expression, you get to bring the scientists in, you get to bring the love for the dogs in, and or animals in general. It's yeah, it's it's a
yeah.
really really powerful combination.
And in this book, um, I keep doing this wrong, from perspective, I actually snuck in agility.
I was gonna ask you about that. I was gonna ask you about it. I mean, like, the thing is, like, I love watching it, like, and I love watching. Um, like, there's really two extremes that I love watching. It's like the winners, you know. And I remember there was some like a dog training a couple, like they basically had a, had a membership that I was a part of, and she went on and took that little cocker that I kind of knew from all the lessons, because he was always the guinea pig of all the, like, all the, it was all very, like, it was all game space. It was literally you play with your dog and the dog learned stuff in the process, right? And so there was all every time she demonstrated something, she would use that little cocker. And then because he was like still young and still learning himself, and then she went with him to craft, and she won the thing. Like, and
Oh
I
my
was like,
goodness.
oh my God, Blitz won the thing, right? And it filled us with my own dog and won it, right? And then on the other hand, there's like Kratu, who's kind of like, yeah, well, I couldn't be asked. Like, I'm just going to take off the poles here, and I'm just going to sit here and do whatever I want. Like these kind of like fails, or these really big dogs who just kind of like, and I just think like and if there's one question that always shoots to my mind, is like, how does one teach this? Because I can have a little agility course in my backyard, and then the dog will know these elements and these tunnels, and but then they go to a competition and it's all different. Like, how do you teach a dog that?
Well, you teach them, actually, what's really interesting about dogs is that they are really watching your body language more than anything. You could be, be pointing like, go this way and, or left or right. And if your feet are pointed the wrong way, a lot of times they'll follow your feet. So it really is this dance of, how am I communicating with my dog in such a way that it understands what I want them to do. And most of the time, when we don't qualify, it's my fault. I forgot the course for an instant, and I was supposed to have my feet pointing this way, and instead it was pointing at the dog walk. And sure enough, the dog took the dog walk, and it was my fault.
Well, that's interesting, because my mind is like, how do I teach the dog what to do? But it's actually like you're the one who has to memorize the course and
Yes,
know. And so basically, the dog will always do the same thing. They will follow your guidance. And
right,
then wherever you guide them, they're going to go. So
right. But
you
you
need to
do,
learn the course,
you
basically.
have to learn that course, but they also have to have the foundation on the equipment because it can be dangerous for the dog when they're going up
Mm,
that, A-frame or going across a dog walk. And if they decide to bail, I mean, it's 6 feet off the ground.
yeah. Ooh.
So you have to teach them the basics. You have to teach value, because why not go sniff over there in that corner where that, ground squirrel was just digging a hole, right? You have to create more value for the obstacle in your relationship than another potentially natural behavior. I was also going to mention that with this new series that I'm working on, I don't really know that much about scent detection. So I have two dogs. I have my dog Charlie, who's doing agility. We're going to nationals next year at CPE. I'm excited. We've already qualified. And then I have a little cattle dog mix who is a agility fail because she has luxating patellus. Her knees slip in and out, so she couldn't do it. And so I put her in nose work about a year, almost a year ago, 9 months maybe. So I'm learning all about nose work and scent detection. It's a whole other ball game. It's so much fun. And originally I was going to do, a couple sessions, just learn enough for the book. And now she loves it. I love it. We're in nose work.
I love it. So how does that work? Like, if you kind of go to nose work class, so what happens?
So they start out teaching, or my instructor, there's different ways to teach it, but my instructor starts with food, and you start putting the food in boxes. And then they learn, oh, boxes means food. And then you slowly transition to putting the food on, tables or chairs or um, other things. And so then they learn, oh, a chair could have something. It's really interesting. There's like a scent cone, and different dogs have different strategies. Like some dogs will move to the wall to catch the cone and then zero in on where the treat is. Other dogs are just like, all over the place, looking super fast. My dog Annie, my instructor said, would be a great bomb detection dog because she checks everything. She is not going to let that treat go unfound.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, they
Yeah.
are so different, aren't they? I mean, is
Yeah.
it like what I find sort of most fascinating about that nose work, where they are like, we can't even perceive most of the stuff they're dealing with, right?
But again, there is some handler involvement in this sport because you're watching their behavior. So she hasn't transitioned to the actual scent discs yet. But what I am learning is when she's on scent, where she's not just like doing a sweep and going, okay, it's not here, it's not here, it's not here. When she's zeroing in, she has certain behavior patterns. And she is one of the dogs that will go to the wall. Some handlers might think, oh, it can't be over there. And we'll try to direct the dog back. No, you want to let the dog go to that wall, figure out where it is, and she comes straight back and she finds it. It's fascinating. It's really fascinating.
Wow. So they have their own little strategy that nobody really teaches them, like they kind of figure that out themselves.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Some dogs, Annie will hold her breath and she huffs. Like she's holding her breath so that more air is going through her nostrils. There are other dogs that pant, pant, pant. They get close to the scent and then they close their mouth. But she's driven. She's really phenomenal at this sport.
Wow. So how did you decide for, like, well, let's try nose work? Okay, she couldn't do agility, you know, was it just like, oh, I'd heard of it and it sounds interesting, or was there
Well, she has a interesting dog training experience. So, of course, we started out in obedience just to get her foundation, um, skills. I do that with all my dogs. And then, we did do agility until I figured out. So she was doing agility for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe, just foundation until I found out something was wrong. And then we went into barn hunt, which is where the dogs find the rats in the tubes. And she was more interested in jumping on top of the hay bales than looking for the rats. I call her Mountain Goat Annie because she loves to jump up on top of things and look around.
oh, that's funny. Mine does that. My big one does that.
Yeah. So that was like, maybe this isn't her sport. So then I took her to circus school where you teach them to jump through hoops and, play bow and, sit pretty and all this other stuff. And she was good at it, but I was starting to get a little nervous because of the jumping and also COVID hit. And so we stopped doing that. And then Nosework came about because of the book I'm writing. And this is her sport. I
Wow.
finally found her sport that, she excels at. She loves it. She's kind of a shy dog, but her tail is up and wagging when we're doing nose work. She loves it. So,
Oh,
it's good to experiment with your dog to see
yeah.
what their particular passion is.
I think
And
that's so important to also recognize, that I mean, I think, like, at least in my case, these are like my four. The two of them I've
okay.
got, the other two have passed. And I didn't, like, before I had more than one dog at a time, I never realized how different they were individually. There was almost like, oh, dogs like this and dogs like that. And what I did not realize that they can grow up in the same household, and still be like, just like people, vastly different,
Yeah.
and to have different likes and dislikes and talents. And so to actually take the time also to sort of look around and try different things until you find the thing where you go, oh yeah, that's it. Like that's her favorite, and we're good with that. I just love that. Yeah, that's fabulous.
Yeah. One of the things that's so coincidental and like a one in a million thing that you could never predict. So, I started Annie and Nose Work, I think it was like last November. Um, and my instructor said, oh, she had looked me up and saw that I wrote books about Dobermans. And she says, oh, well, there's going to be a Doberman in this class. And there's
Oh,
5 people in this class. And she goes, you probably know them. And I said, no, I really just kind of know Ruby and, a few other dogs. It's a big area, And lo and behold, it was Charles, Ruby's owner, with his new dog. I was flabbergasted. I mean, what are the odds?
that's incredible.
And he lives in a city that's it's probably a good half hour, 45-minute drive for him. So he's not even that close to the location. I mean, it was just like, the world wants me to write this book about with a Doberman.
I think so. And you've got your new model then, so because he's got another Doberman, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
funny.
don't know that I'm going to use Bruce because he is a male and my dog protagonist is a female. Um, but you never know.
Well, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, and
So
so Bruce, it's now Ruby Dooby Doo and Bruce 2 is his handle. Because Ruby still, she was so beloved. When she passed, people from all over the world,
oh,
Europe, all over the place, sent condolences. I did a story on Ruby when she passed. Um, and shared it on some Doberman platforms. And just, I mean, the response, she was just very special. Bruce is
yeah.
great too, but there was something about Ruby. There really was.
Yeah. There's some dogs like there's an in like I don't know where I think the guy's on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, but he had this big chunky pitty, and I cried my eyes out when that dog passed away suddenly. It's like I'm like what is it? Like, like, I don't even, I've not even met the dog kind of thing, but it's like you get so familiar. And he was there was also this idea that, like real sort of advocacy for the breed, because, there was this tough looking guy with tattoos and this big pit bull with this, always had his head on his shoulder. But like, there was like, both of them were so gentle, especially with each other, like, and you could really like it shifts people's perspective, and he passed away suddenly, and it was just like, oh my god, it really, it's incredible how that hits you,
Yeah,
even if it's like a dog, somebody else's dog that you just know from social media,
yeah.
but there are some dogs who just have that charisma that really, catches and takes people along for sure.
Not my heart was broken when Ruby passed. She was special. She really
Yeah,
was.
yeah, boy. So where can people, find out more when the new book's coming out and get the books you've got? So obviously we're gonna pop that on the show notes and and have pictures of the book and all of that. So, but let people know, the ones who are only listening.
So you can reach me on www.jillhedgecock.com.
Awesome.
And
Well,
yeah,
easy.
easy. Yeah. Yeah. And on the site, you can see all the books that I've written. So yeah.
Well, then I hope that you're gonna write many more, and in this series or other series, because I think it's just a beautiful combination of wrapping some valuable teaching into a format that's fun and easy to digest.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming.
Oh,
Absolute
thank you for
delight.
having me. It's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so other dog lovers can find the show. If you haven't already, head over to soultouchedbydogs.com and sign up for weekly doggy cuteness, tips, recommendations, and personal stories to warm your dog-loving heart. And if you know a awesome human you think I should interview, I'd love an introduction. Email me at Anke, that's ANKE, at soultouchedbydogs.com.